Hello and welcome to the Marty Glickman Awards as we honor legendary broadcaster Dick Stockton. Before we begin, we acknowledge with respect the Onondaga Nation, firekeepers of the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous people on whose ancestral lands Syracuse University now stands. I'm Olivia Stomsky. I'm the director of the Newhouse Sports Media Center, and I'm honored to be your host this evening to celebrate the Marty Glickman Award. To start our evening, I would like to welcome the Dean of the SI Newhouse School of Public Communications, Dean Mark Lodato.
Thanks so much, Olivia. It is also my honor to be here with everyone here tonight. You know, Marty Glickman's legacy marks the beginning of Syracuse University's nearly 8-decade history of producing successful professionals in sports communications, a legacy that includes our honoree today, Hall of Fame sportscaster Dick Stockton. Alums like Marty Glickman and Dick Stockton have helped set the foundation for hundreds, if not thousands, of Newhouse graduates who have followed them into the world of play-by-play and locker room interviews and onto press rows in stadiums and arenas around the country. And this is a great example of how Newhouse's commitment to helping students succeed continues through our Sports Media Center, which connects alumni, faculty, and current students through their sports journalism skills and passion for the profession. The center provides oversight for the school's sports media and communications emphasis, a specialized track for graduate and undergraduate students in the broadcast and digital journalism areas, as well as magazine and TV, radio, and film programs. And the Sports Media Center also collaborates with several on-campus sports media and strengthens the academic industry partnerships through special events, guest lectures, and an advisory board of professionals in sports media. And I can tell you on a personal level, I'm so excited to be able to participate in this event this evening. I am coming up on the end of my 3rd year as Dean of the Newhouse School, but this is my very first Marty Glickman Awards event. And I think it's only fitting that we are honoring Dick Stockton tonight, someone who I have admired and watched over many years and really have always been so impressed by his career as someone who in high school thought he might be a sportscaster himself. I can remember attempting to do some play-by-play football and basketball and quickly realized I better go the news route. I have great respect for Dick and all the other legendary broadcasters in sports who have come out of the Newhouse School. So it is a pleasure to be here with everyone tonight. We are so happy that you could join us and we have this opportunity to recognize Dick Stockton's legendary career. So with that, Olivia, I will turn it back over to you.
Oh, I can't hear.
I somehow got muted. I'm back for you. Thank you, Dean Lodato. Marty Glickman was indeed a pioneer, leader, mentor, and that's one of the reasons why it is so fitting for Dick Stockton to be celebrated today with the Marty Glickman Award. But first, for more about Marty Glickman, here is the voice of the Orange, Matt Park.
Tittle takes the snap back, goes straight back to pass. Sting rush, throws down the middle. It's caught by Giffen at midfield. A beautiful one-handed catch at midfield, and he throws forward to the 47. What a catch by Giffen, a one-hander reaching to his shootout.
Marty Glickman was a true pioneer in the world of sports broadcasting, a man who revolutionized the way we watch and understand sports. He brought a level of insight and analysis to his commentary that was unmatched, and his passion for the games he covered was evident in every word he spoke. Marty was a budding athlete when he decided to attend Syracuse University in 1933. He was a member of the 1936 U.S. Olympic team in Germany, but was controversially denied from running with his fellow Jewish team member Sam Stoller. Glickman went on to become a world-class broadcaster and the voice of the New York Knicks and Giants. But Glickman's impact went far beyond the broadcast booth. He was a champion of equality and social justice, a man who used his platform to fight for the rights of all athletes, regardless of their race or background. He was a trailblazer who paved the way for generations of Syracuse University broadcasters and journalists to come, and his influence can still be felt in the industry today. The Glickman Award honors a Syracuse University alum who has carried on Marty's legacy and celebrates their contributions to sports broadcasting and journalism. Honorees like Marty Glickman, have used their voices to educate and inspire people around the world. Through innovation, persistence, and passion, Glickman left a lasting effect on the industry. Marty paved the way for future Newhouse generations to build impactful careers in broadcasting. The Marty Glickman Award for Leadership in Sports Media.
Thank you to Senior Brett Rude and Professor Jordan Kligerman for that wonderful video. We are so glad that there are so many of us here tonight to hear, but primarily talk about Dick Stockton. However, there were a few that couldn't make it and didn't want to miss their opportunity to say a few words. Here they are.
Hey, Dick, it's Bob Costas. First of all, congratulations. And you know, these days, it seems you can hardly walk into a network seminar, a studio, a broadcast booth, or a control room without bumping into at least a few Syracuse alums. It seems like we've overrun the business. But way back when, before the McDonoughs and the Taricos, the Mowens and the Pashas, the Benettis and the Papas, Zucker and O'Brien and Roth and McHugh, and of course, the Double Eagle, way before all of them, and probably by now 100 more, back more than half a century ago when I was thinking about going to Syracuse, there were only three, at least only three that I was aware of. For the purposes of this, we're not counting Dick Clark and Ted Koppel. They weren't sportscasters. The three were Marty Glickman, Marv Albert, and a young guy making a name for himself in Boston, Dick Stockton. So you were in on the ground floor, really. But the very first, as we all know, was Marty Glickman. And we know that because of Marty, because of the broadcaster he was and the person he was, this award symbolizes so much. And it's something you have to earn. And boy, have you earned it. Beginning in Boston with the baseball, that great moment in the World Series in 1975 and your terrific call of Carlton Fisk's home run, a call that will always be remembered. The NBA on CBS, it wasn't just Magic and Bird. Dr. J was still there in the early stages of Michael Jordan's NBA career. The big moments in the NCAA tournament with CBS's coverage of March Madness. More NFL games than we can possibly recount. Big moments at the Olympics. You've done it all, and you've done it all supremely well. Marty would be proud. All of us are proud. So once again, congratulations, Dick, and welcome to the club.
Hello, friends. I just want to say a quick word to my friend, Dick Stockton. Dick, you're one of the all-time greatest voices in the history of our medium, and it has been such an honor to know you. I'm in awe of you, as I have been from the first time we ever met. Now, you won't remember it, but I will tell you, it was at the Houston Summit in the early 80s. You were calling a boxing match involving Olympic gold medalist Howard Davis, who had just turned pro. And I jumped into the ring afterwards. I had a credential from covering sports for the campus radio station. And after you finished the interview at the end of the boxing match, I went over and made an introduction. You could not have been more gracious then. You've been gracious like that every time I've ever had the great fortune of being in your company, including 15 months ago when you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. So the Marty Glickman Award, it would never be complete without your name on it. You're a tremendous credit to Syracuse and to our industry. And I am so honored, as I have been for over 40 years since we first met, to call you a friend. God bless you, Dick. You're the best of the best.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Dick Stockton.
Ifs and buts were candied nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
Yes! St. George wins it. If it stays fair, home run. They have indeed come prepared for this game. This is a seventh game.
Vince, you were extraordinary. Congratulations in defeat.
Leitner with the shot, and Duke wins. 112-43, and he's in first place. Who knows what hero is going to step up tonight? Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago. And you are holding, has to be the youngest race fan of all, 11 weeks old. I can't believe that. Things have gotten a bit apprehensive for the pinstripe. Steve Smith is going to go all the way. Here's the play at the plate, and he's safe, and the Braves win it. Good afternoon. afternoon, everyone. Dick Stockton with John Madden here in Minnesota.
You must be out of breath and you must be excited. Congratulations.
Working with me is a man who someday should be in the Hall of Fame in pro football, Paul Warfield, a great wide receiver.
Larry Bird has been named the most valuable player of this East-West College Basketball Classic, and none of us voted for Larry Bird.
Hello from Fenway Park as we pay tribute to Dick Stockton. So many big games and so many big moments we could cite when we talk about the career of Dick Stockton. But this ballpark and this city are at the heart of his Hall of Fame career. Game 6, 1975 World Series. Carlton Fisk at the plate and Dick Stockton at the mic.
There it goes, the long drive. If it stays fair, home run.
Dick's call of that epic home run by Carlton Fisk still echoes down the corridors of time, remembered by every baseball fan.
Dick got to call one of the greatest home runs in the history of the World Series. To this day, you still get chills, you still get goosebumps if you love baseball and you watch Dick put the perfect call on Carlton Fisk's home run.
Whenever, as a kid of the 80s, I turned on the NBA, I listened to Dick Stockton.
And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Bedlam in Boston Garden.
And I realized from a very young age how terrific a broadcaster and how big sound really should be on television because of Dick. I think the NBA, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, I think of Dick Stockton.
The pictures and the sounds tell it all of a deciding game.
And Larry Bird is smiling for the first time in this championship series.
I want to bring in my partner right now, who has won more world championships than he has fingers. Jordan, with 2 seconds to go, puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago.
The big thing at Fox launching a new network was credibility. And the only team that I could think of was Dick Stockton, Matt Millen, bringing them over from CBS.
Welcome to a new season. As most of you know, we have a new address, and all of us are excited about the change, and that includes my partner, Matt Millen.
I've had a very fortunate career. Fortunate to have been on great teams. Fortunate to have played with great teammates. But I can say with great confidence that Dick Stockton is one of the best coaches and teammates that I've ever had. We had a great run together at Fox. We're very happy for you, Dick. Thanks for all the seasons together. And by the way, I don't think you've ever picked up a check. In fact, I know so. Love you, Dick.
Love working with you, if indeed this is our finale.
Well, sometimes you have to move on to bluer or greener pastures.
You know, he always told me, let's not be cliche.
In a 20-13 contest, come back, please.
He said, I don't want any no shit moments within this broadcast.
Complimentary football.
Yes,
the
indeed.
defense helping the offense. Also teammates. You're complimentary with me.
Right.
When you walk away, I have to bring you in.
And anytime I would give him a no shit moment, which happens probably far too often, he would just kind of look at me in the broadcast booth and he would mouth, no shit.
And I was walking away to grab this right here. Dick.
No, not
75th birthday this week.
And so it was always one of those things, you got to be on your toes, right?
Another birthday, another cake. Why don't you keep holding
You know
it?
what? We're gonna continue to let you do this job until you get it right. Another 20 years or so.
We had the whole crew over at our house for a dinner, and Dick got on the piano, and I'll never forget, he just had all my 4 kids mesmerized by that piano, as well as the whole crew. Dick was just the Pied Piper.
Delone fires to an open Smith. Steve Smith is going to go all the way, and the Carolina Panthers win in overtime. And the rest is history.
Well, for tonight, we've just begun. Many of us know that in this industry, it's common that we spend more time with the people we work with than our own families. And sometimes those bonds transcend the broadcast. NFL veteran Matt Millen and Dick Stockton were partners for 8 years. He's here tonight to say a few words. Matt, the floor is yours.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure for me to say some words about my partner, Dick Stockton. You know, I've known Dick for over 30 years. You know, I first met him at CBS. I don't know, Dick, if you even remember this, but it was an audition. And he came in, and as soon as I did, I could see that Dick Stockton was the best of the best. And it was interesting because he had that voice, you know, he had that commanding understanding, he had great wit, he had confidence, and he made the game sound big. Every game sounded big. I was familiar with his work, basketball, baseball, the Olympics, and you heard the things with, you know, with the Olympics there, you saw that, and you also saw the baseball, you saw, you know, Michael Jordan's NBA, you saw the Carlton Fisk home run in '75. I was there for all that stuff, and I was listening to Dick Stockton. And then from 94 to 2001, I had great pleasure to be able to work with him. And he's one of the most talented broadcasters in the history of broadcasting. And so what I learned from Dick was two things: listen and observe. They're the two best things he ever taught me. I also learned to have fun, because let me tell you something, this is the very hilarious man when he wants to be, and he is very talented. So from his imitations to, you know, entertaining things, he does hop on the piano and play a bunch of stuff. He's amazing. And so not bad for a political science major. So I will tell you this, from the man from Syracuse, there's another adage in a piece that he contributed to me, and it was the best piece of advice that I ever got. And it's simple, maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, but it's: a proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. He was a big believer in that, and he made me a big believer in it. Because let me tell you something, he never walked into a booth unprepared, and he expected that from his partner, and we were able to get that done. I loved working with Dick. I have been thankful ever since our paths have crossed. You know, it's good when you like working with something. It's the best when you love working with somebody, and I had the best time with Dick Stockton. So congratulations, Dick. It's well deserved.
Thank you so much, Matt. Before we move any further, I would like to introduce a few of the previous winners that are here tonight with us. So first up, 2016 winner of the Marty Glickman Award, Sean McDonough.
Thanks, Olivia. Great to see so many friends on here. We'll just take a moment. Hard to follow Bob Costas and Jim Nantz and Matt Millen. I think they've all summed it up perfectly so far. I just want to add my congratulations to Dick and my thank you for what you mean to all of us, to me personally, and our friendship. You know, as Bob said, you know, we all went to SU because we wanted to be Marv and you, Dick, especially me. I wanted to be you growing up here in Boston and remembering that 1975 season. I won't tell you that I was only 13 years old when it happened, but it was a wonderful memory. Game 7 wasn't such a wonderful memory. But anyway, you're a great credit to our university, to our profession, and as a person, I cherish our friendship. Congratulations. I hope I see you again soon.
Just as they're starting mute others. So, all right. Thank you so much, Sean. 2017 winner at the Kentucky Derby, as far as I know, was with us tonight, Mike Tirico. Mike.
I am. Hi, everybody. Dick, congratulations. This is only appropriate for all of us who spent all this time in TV. I'm in a production trailer. There's a great horse racing track out there, the most beautiful in the world. People are drunk. They're drinking out there, and I'm sitting in here on a Zoom. The only thing I want is a beer and hear more stories about life with Dick Stockton. What an honor. What a pleasure. Listening to all your highlights reminded me of all the moments that I watched you growing up and then in the industry early on. And you set a standard for all of us. Every sport, you sounded like that was your main sport. And you were so good at it. And one of the joys of my career was sitting next to Hubie Brown for 10 years and hearing all the stories of you, Dick, and Hubie talking about a game after the game, going to the bar, and just, how'd we do? Dick, really, how'd we do? Did we do okay? Hubie must have said that to me 100 times. Stockton and I used to talk about the games all the time and have a drink and make sure we covered everything, right? And you brought everyone from Millen to Madden at the beginning to Hubie to so many others to such a great height. You were always great when you came back to Syracuse visiting us and instilled in us to make sure we did the same. It's an honor to be a part of this award, but it really wasn't a whole complete representation of what this award should be until now, until tonight, as you join this group. So on behalf of all of us, congratulations. Thanks for being so great to us for all these years. And we're so honored to welcome you to this club that you richly deserve to be in. All the best, Dick. Thanks so much.
Mike, thank you so much. And before we present the award, we have one more. 2018 winner, Ian Eagle. Ian.
Olivia, thank you. Ian Eagle, Dick, live from New Jersey, where our state motto is, it's not that bad here, really. Dick, I got to tell you, we have a bond that goes beyond just Syracuse, because anyone that's on this call right now is bonded to you based on Syracuse University and all of that is so special to us. But for me, Forest Hills High School. Forest Hills High School, Dick. Did you have Erwin Iser for gym? I don't remember, but I remember this. I was there. I articulated to someone, a teacher, I believe, that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And they said, do you know who went here? I said, who? They said, Simon and Garfunkel. I go, that's amazing. That has nothing to do with what I want to do. Then they said, Dick Stockton. I said, the Dick Stockton on CBS? This is the 80s. They said, yeah. And I don't want to say who this was because I don't even remember. But then they dropped dime on you because they told me that's not his real name. I said, no, of course it is. They said, no. It's Richard Stockvis. There was no Google. I could not confirm this. I have since confirmed it. Amazing. Good choice, though. Dick Stockton, great ring to it. Here's the thing. Goosebumps from the calls just now. It's all of our sports experiences coming out in that form, and your voice, indelible. CBS, Turner, Fox. Think about how much you resonated on all three of these networks. To walk into Newhouse, to walk into WAER, there were pictures on the wall. And when I got there, picture of Marty Glickman, picture of Dick Stockton. All of us wanted to be at that level. Incredible, incredible career. And thank you for being so warm and so welcoming whenever I've been in your company, and for your sense of humor as well, because for the perceptive listener and viewer, we got it. You're the best. Congrats.
Thanks, Ian. And now to present the award, the 2019 Marty Glickman Award winner, Sandy Montag. Sandy.
Hi, Dick. What's kind of surreal after all these great broadcasters that I'm the one that gets to present you with the Marty Glickman Award for Leadership in Sports Media. But I guess I was the last winner. Although, like many of us, Marv Albert was my childhood idol. You were really the voice of my generation. And, I first got to meet Dick on the Hubie Brown, Dick Stockton team at CBS. I was a runner and a stats person. And I went on to, and still do, represent Hubie for over 30 years. But I remember you at the time, for a kid coming out of Syracuse, really being gracious, taking the time to answer questions, ask me questions about, growing up in the New York City area. And I'll really never forget that. But we really got to know each other through John Madden. And I think very few people really know the friendship, the deep, deep friendship that you and John Madden had. You were one of the few broadcasters at CBS that worked with John before Pat. And I remember countless dinners that the three of us had in New York City, many of them at Fine and Shapiro Deli on the Upper West Side, where John tried to convince us that he was also Jewish, but we'd really have none of it. So, but it was really during those times that, with the two of you ribbing each other and the jokes and going back and forth, that I really got to know you. But it was, I really saw the deep respect that the two of you had for each other. And, that's still, with John passing, that still is with me today. I also remember, all of your impressions of Marty Glickman. And I think many of the broadcasters on this Zoom do impressions of Marty Glickman, but there is no one I guarantee you, no one that does an impression of Marty Glickman like you do. And I hear coming up shortly that we might potentially hear another one. So, we're also so fortunate to have great broadcasters coming out of Syracuse and Newhouse. But for me, more importantly, they're great human beings that come out of our university. And you, Dick, without a doubt, you exemplify that. You're a great, warm, caring, funny person. And to me, you are and always will be a legend. Now, I read that your degree was in speech and dramatic arts. Matt said something about political science, so maybe you had a bunch of different degrees. But, right after that, you started your career in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and went to Boston calling the Celtic and Red Sox games, and certainly the Carlton Fisk call that, we all heard here tonight. But you had 17 years at CBS, lead play-by-play person for the NBA and college basketball. 19 years at Turner, calling baseball and NBA, and certainly your time at Fox. And really, it's just the career that you've had is legendary in our business, working for all those networks. Dick, we know that you bleed Syracuse orange. I know that receiving this award with Marty's name on it is very special for you. It's my honor to consider you a friend, and it's my honor to present you with the Marty Glickman Award for Leadership in Sports Media.
This is the Marty Glickman Award that I received, and it was delivered by FedEx, left at my doorstep. Wasn't sure what it was, but I opened it up, and it is a beautiful, beautiful crystalline thing designed by a gentleman named Peter Yenowin, who is worldwide known and did work for presidents of the United States. And the reason I mention this is because Jamie, my wife, and I spend our summers in Alexandria Bay, New York, and we are very close friends with his brother, Marty Yenowin. So when I saw that Peter Yenowin had designed this beautiful trophy, I said, I bet you that's Marty's brother, and we checked it out. And Jamie talked to Marty today, and he said, yes, he is my brother. So thank you for this award. I don't know where to start. Sandy, great memories. I was hopeful that you would represent me, and I called you many times if you would represent me, and I even offered 50% of my salary, but you turned me down each time. And I know we're close today, but that's what happened. But I think you made out okay in your career. So I went in a different direction, but you were the guy. Thank you very much. We did have so many great memories with John, watching Monday Night Football at the Dakota, and doing so many things. And so great memories of John. And of course, connected with Matt Millen. Matt is special to me. He's not just my first and last partner in the booth, believe it or not. We did our first game in 1994 in the opening of the season. The Giants were playing the Eagles at Giants Stadium. And that was the first game we ever did. And the last game I ever did before I stepped down was in 2020, when Matt and I were in Cleveland to do the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. So call it bookends, if you will. But Matt has a special place in my heart, no pun intended, because as many of you know, Matt Millen is, to me, the representative of the true miracle of the Lord, needing a heart transplant and time running out. Finally got news of that on Christmas Eve in 2018. And to me, that is a fantastic story. To me, it actually could start and end with Matt Millen with that. But I enjoyed the 8 years we spent together. We had a lot of laughs. I remember the laughs more than any games that we did. And Matt was great because, in those days, the beginning of Fox, they had makeup girls in the booth, and they would put makeup on you. They stopped that because, it was against their budget, I guess, after a while. And so I would have my makeup on, and Matt would come up, after being down on the field, and they say, Matt, give him mine. Give him mine. That's what he used to say. And when we did broadcasts, we had a great time because Matt, there would be a play, and he would say, Dick, did you see that? And Matt would see like 8 things on a given play. He would see what the safety did, and he would see the way the receiver did. And he says, Matt, did you see that? And I had no idea what he was talking about before he explained it on the replay, but I always said, yes, I did, because I couldn't say no. So, Matt's a special guy, and I'm glad he's aboard tonight. I am really grateful, by the way, that you guys, the trio of the former broadcasters and Dean Lodato, who I have had a wonderful conversation with almost a year ago about journalism in general, and we will continue that. But to have three of the most talented current broadcasters, I am really blown away. I am really impressed. And, you know, as you talk about athletes and how they get better as time goes on, I think broadcasters are better. And I think that the talent of these three is good, if not better, than the broadcasters of my time. Now, maybe we covered events that were great, and they are and will do the same thing. I talk about Ian Eagle, who I know is a great sense of humor. He's disguising that today because he is despondent over the fact that Noah didn't win this award this year. So I understand sooner or later he's going to get this award. But Ian, good to see you here, and I offer my great congratulations on you becoming the voice of the NCAA tournament looking forward. That is a great honor, and there are only a handful who have done it. And Kurt Gowdy, who is a mentor to me and a man I worked with in the 1975 World Series, was the first that I remember doing the Final Four and the whole NCAA tournament. And now Ian Eagle has his chance, richly deserved. He's paid his dues and a tremendous talent. And Mike Tirico, you know, I'm amazed at the talent and quickness of mind of Mike Tirico, who has taken over the mantle of being kind of America's host of all the big events, and yet combining it with the play-by-play he does on NFL football. And, you know, usually, you know, in my business, I've always seen guys who were either great hosts or great play-by-play guys. Very few were good or outstanding at both. Mike Tirico is. And he's at the Kentucky Derby, and I'll be watching that. And so it's great to see Mike. And of course, Sean McDonough, who has been a great personal friend of mine. And the best way I can describe Sean, and I knew his dad, and I've seen, you know, Sean throughout the years, is that they used to have a phrase in boxing, you know, they say, you know, Sugar Ray Robinson, pound for pound, the best there is. Well, I think pound for pound, Sean McDonough is as good a play-by-play announcer as there is in our business right now. So thank you, all three of you, for joining us. I have great gratitude for everyone who may be watching as attendees, and for all of the armed forces servicemen who are watching on television. No, I don't think they are, but you know, if they were, I want to thank everybody for watching that I don't see right now. But I've been very blessed in my career. I wanted to be a sports writer. Many of you may know that. Growing up, my father brought 8 newspapers home a day. I didn't think about broadcasting. I went to Syracuse University. They did not have the Newhouse School. That was not even built after, you know, maybe 2 years after my graduation. But I wanted to be a journalist, and I wanted to be a sports writer. I wrote for the Daily Orange, and then later on broke into WAER. And Syracuse University really laid the foundation for me for, you know, what I've become. And, you know, I'm way in the back now. I mean, there are people that, when they talk about Syracuse announcers, you know, they talk about, you know, the people that you have mentioned, that Bob Costas had mentioned, who were just recently out of school. And but it's a great long list. So the university must be doing something right, and have for decades and decades. So it's great. You know, I wanted to become an on-air person, and my first job was at WINS as a copy boy in New York City, and then went to KYW and got on the air there. And by the way, you know, talking about, you know, the name, I auditioned for the weekend sportscaster job at Channel 3 KYW in Philadelphia, and Win Baker, who was responsible for giving me my break in television, brought me up to the office. He says, you know what, you're a young kid, and I'm going to give you a chance to do this on the weekends. He says, but you got to do something about that name. He says, Stokvis, which is, by the way, a Dutch name. It's kind of translates into a dried fish, but we won't get into that. But he says, Stokvis. He says, when people see it, they don't know what it is. And when people hear it, they don't know what it is. They have no idea. Come up with, and I said, how's Stockton? And he said, great. And that's how I became Dick Stockton. Okay, just like that. It was in a moment that we did this, and so I was on KYW News Radio, and so the newscaster would hand over, as you know, they do 30 minutes of news. They would hand over, and so before they really got to know that I was now Stockton, they would say, and now for the next 30 minutes, here's Dick Stockton. I was Stockton, and they would do that for like weeks before they really got the idea. But I was blessed. I started out at local stations, as many of you have known. In Philadelphia and then Boston, Pittsburgh especially. And in Pittsburgh, I got to know the Rooney family very well and got to be close with them. And I think my connection with getting to CBS became Art and Dan Rooney calling Bill McPhail, who was then the head of CBS. He says, give this kid a chance. And they hired me to do post-game shows. And this is long before the NFL Today. And I would be in the bowels of the stadium at Pitt Stadium, and I would do a little intro, and I would do the halftime scores, and we'd have boards that we would move. You know, they were just Spartan, and you would always see a crew member eating a ham sandwich when you turn the board in the back there. You know, and it wasn't like the kind of production that we see today, but. You know, I've had a wonderful career. A lot of you have seen the highlights. I've been at the right place at the right time. I have so many people to thank. You know, a lot of you who talked about the Boston Red Sox. You know, Gene Kirby was the assistant general manager of the Boston Red Sox under Dick O'Connell in the mid 70s. And he called me one day. I was freelancing in New York, and he said to me, you know, your name has been mentioned as possible Boston Red Sox announcer. He says, have you ever done baseball before? And I said, no, I haven't. He says, take a tape recorder, go out to Shea Stadium because the Yankee Stadium was being revamped. And he says, do a tape of a game and send it to me, and I will critique it, and we'll see how this goes. And I did that. And he called me about 4 days later after I sent it in. And he says, do you have a legal size pad in front of you? I said, yeah. He says, let's go over it. And for 7 pages, he ripped me. He said, you are incapable of doing baseball. Okay. This is what you did wrong. And he went over, you know, every little thing. He says, you don't say, the pacing was bad. He says, is it a number? What is a number? Is it a line? You know, is it a short? Was it a soft line drive, or what was it? And he killed me. He says, look, take a tape recorder, go back and do it again. You realize I've had 7 tapes I went back to do before he finally said, I can now recommend you to be the Red Sox broadcaster, working with Ken Hawk Harrelson in 1975. And wouldn't you know, a year and a month later, I call Carlton Fisk home run. Who knows how things go in this business? I mean, it's just unbelievable how that worked. You know, there are always people that have guided you to be in the right place at the right time. There have always been people who took a chance on you, even when, you know, you weren't that good or weren't good at all. And I've had the benefit of that. And I have been, you know, totally blessed. We talk about Marty Glickman, and let me talk about the Glickman because this is the award. I was a kid growing up in Queens, and I would listen to the radio and listen to games. And in my room, I would listen to all of the Knicks games on radio, college basketball from Madison Square Garden, and the Giants games on Sunday. And Marty Glickman, to me, was the stanchion of sports broadcasting because of his precise description where the ball was. You always knew where the ball was. You didn't have to guess. And he did it with an economy of verbiage. And the other thing he did, because it was in the days before widespread television and color television, even, yes, black and white when I broke in the 50s as a sports fan, he would describe the team's uniforms. And I couldn't wait till Marty Glickman would say, the New York Giants warming up to our right in their royal blue jerseys with white numerals, silver pants with red and blue trim, blue helmets with a red stripe. You know, San Francisco 49ers in their crimson jerseys with white numerals and crimson helmets. And he would describe all of them. And, you know, he would, at college basketball, I mean, I don't know, he says, LaSalle, the Explorers with Tom Gola in their royal blue jerseys, quarter sleeve jerseys with LaSalle in gold across their chest, and the Duquesne Dukes in their white jerseys with red trimmed in blue. I mean, he went down all the details. And I was so happy that I happened to be doing a Jet game for Fox in my career at Giant Stadium when he was doing the game. And I actually did the imitation of Marty Glickman then as we showed him. And I talked about Marty then too. But I came across Marty personally. He was very close friends with Red Auerbach. And Red told him about me, and he called me one day out of the blue. It was 1974, I think, in Boston. And he says, Dick, Marty Glickman. I said, hi, Marty. He says, I'd like you to join the sportscasting staff of a new cable operation. 8,000 subscribers in Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. It's called Home Box Office. You can't say when you do the games, Home Box Office enough. You can say it every other line. It's fine. There's one situation that you must know about, Dick, and that is we have no commercials. So if you do a double header on Saturday afternoon at college game at Madison Square Garden, you must fill during every commercial timeout. You must fill at halftime with your partner. You must fill between games. Two games. We couldn't take a breath. He says, you can interview anyone you want, interview the cheerleaders, interview the mascots. It didn't matter. You could do all these things. And he says, but you must say Home Box Office every other line and then fill your time. So we did this, and it was a great education because it taught you, that number one, don't leave it all out in the call because you're going to need some stuff during the halftime stuff. And we interviewed other coaches who were there. We looked around, we walked around, and we did those, but it was an education, and they had 8,000 subscribers. And of course, we didn't know at the time that Home Box Office would become what it is today, such a giant. But I appreciate you people for being here. It's special because you have things to do, I know, and hockey and basketball and the racing, and Sandy attending to his clients as he does so very well. I decided to step away a couple of years ago. I knew it was time. I had over 55 years in the business. I had done the things I wanted to do. I have so many interests. This July, I'll be married to Jamie, who's been a godsend in my life. And because of that, we love to travel. We're on cruises all the time. We go on trips all the time. We were in Buenos Aires when we watched Ian Eagle and Charles Davis do the world feed for the Super Bowl, and a great job they did. And so we go on these things. I have interests in my life. For some reason, I've never been bored in my life. I've never been bored. And I've never felt that I had to do something. So I play the piano. I taught myself how to play at Del Plain Hall in my senior year at Syracuse. I learned to read music, the music of Oliver, the great show Oliver. Lionel Bart, by the way, was the great songwriter. I can't play by ear, but I can read anything. And I do that, and I sing. I have a clavinova, which is sort of a musical instrument where other songs come in. I play chess on the computer, on my phone, against people from Bangladesh and from Saudi Arabia and all over the place, my level. So I love to play chess. I read mystery, spy novels, suspense, detective novels. Michael Connolly, who you may know is a great friend of mine, played in my member guest golf tournament, last month. And so it's been a great life. And I tell people, sports broadcasting is what I did, not who I was, although I had the great passion to do it if I didn't have the passion to do it. But as the years go on, you find, and I'm 80 now, that and I work out with a trainer twice a week. I play tennis 3 times a week and golf twice a week. So, I'm in fairly good shape, for my age. And, the Lord has kept me mentally sharp as well, which I'm grateful for. And that's really the most important thing. But I enjoy life, and I don't watch every game that's on television. I watch more tennis and golf than a lot of other things. And I enjoy watching all of you people who are here on tonight. You do a fantastic job. So I thank you very much. I'm grateful. And I wanted to also to open this up to any questions that anybody may want to ask me that I may have left out, during my career. But anyway, I just say thank you very much. I'm honored, blown away by this award.
Well, before we start questions, I'm sure that some of our panelists will have them, but we have opened it up to some of the attendees who don't know you personally and wanted a chance to ask you a couple of questions. So our first question was quite quick, and I want to make sure that we get it in because I think it's a great question from Mark Lamosky. He first of all wants me to say congratulations, but we can see many pictures in the background of your Zoom. What are some of the most valued memorabilia that you have collected over the years from your career?
Muhammad Ali and myself. I got to know Muhammad Ali when he was, winning his Supreme Court decision after having his heavyweight crown taken away without due process for 43 months. We got to know him because I knew his attorney. Bobby Thompson, who I only talked to and didn't know, but he's the reason why I'm D Stock 51, because 1951 was the first year I followed baseball, and it was Bobby Thompson hitting the shot heard around the world. My Hall of Fame trophies or whatever it is, which, and I will say something about accolades in a minute. Pictures of Dan Jansen. Different photos. Dr. Julius Erving, who I happened to MC his farewell at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Michael Jordan and I was pretty close to Michael Jordan when I played. Framed, letters from Roger Goodell, Art Rooney, and so forth. But those are a lot of the pictures I have. Accolades. It's interesting you say this. I've never been one for that kind of thing. I love what I did, and I was a journalist. I always looked upon what we do as play-by-play announcers as the conduit between the fan, between the player and the fan. They don't tune in to watch us, unless it's a Super Bowl and Mike's doing it, or it's the Final Four where they know Ian's doing it, or a big college game that Sean is doing. They don't tune in to say, I want to hear Dick Stockton do the game today. They don't know I'm doing it. So we're the reporters doing the game, and that is what I feel. So I never looked upon it as celebrity at all, even though people say I like your voice. I always thought on the morning of a game, whatever game I was doing, of the guy that worked at 7-Eleven, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And on the weekend, he was going home and he was going to enjoy sitting in front of his television, and he was going to enjoy watching sports with chicken wings or pizza and maybe a beer or two. And so, he wanted to watch the game. And so I always said to myself, if I can make him enjoy this game without getting in the way, and there are a lot of ways that you can get in the way and enhance it for him, I've done my job, pure and simple. That's what it's all about.
So we have a couple more questions, and then I'll open it up to the panelists. But one of the questions here is, we all have our own favorite calls, whether that's from you, from Marty, from Mike, Ian, and Sean. Do you have a favorite call of your own?
Well, if it stays fair, I think my business card says if it stays fair. So that might give it away. It was Carlton Fisk's home run, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. It's interesting about, and some of you may know how I even got to call that play. When I was the Red Sox representative, one of them for the NBC telecast with Kurt Gowdy, Tony Kubek, and Joe Garagiola, we would always do the last 4.5 innings, and it would be either, Kurt or Joe would do the first 4.5. But this was 6th game of the World Series, and it had been rained out for several days, and nor'easter had come in, and so the game had been canceled. I know Sean remembers it very well. And so they said, Dick, in this game, you will start doing the first 4.5 because we want Kurt's, or it was Joe actually. Kurt was on radio, Joe's voice to record, the end of the game for the network. And I said, no way. So I said, whatever you want. I'm just so happy to be here. You call the shot. If you want me to do 1 inning, I'm happy doing 1 inning. So I did the first 4.5 innings, and Joe did the last 4.5, and then they go to extra innings, and they said, what do we do now? And Chet Simmons and Carl Lindemann were running NBC at the time. And they just said, let's just alternate innings. Now, you know that would never happen today. There is no way on earth this would happen today, where all of a sudden they'll say, Mike, listen, it's his. Are you kidding me? So but they were happy with it. And I did the 10th inning. Joe did the 11th, and I happened to do the 12th inning. And at the bottom of the 12th inning, being at the right place at the right time when that happens, And before we go on, I did want to add one other thing before we go to more questions, and I left this out. I almost buried the lead, no pun intended, but I've gone back to my roots. I'm writing again. I write a sports column every week in the Thousand Islands Sun, and I've been doing it for 5 years. And it's opinionated, and I do it in my voice, and it's like I'm talking to you, and I enjoy it. And in fact, and I've told people this, and you talk about using your mind and having used your mind. I have to say, what am I going to write this Monday? And it's once a week, and I have to think of the topic, and I have to do it, present it, and what am I going to write about? And I write about other things. I knew Paul Simon, and I knew Burt Bacharach, who passed away recently, and I know people, and I know all of you know people too. So I'm not trying to drop names, but I will write columns about these people, and I will do that every week. And it is a tremendous challenge, almost to the point, and I will say this: it is really, in some ways, a bigger challenge than broadcasting a game, because in broadcasting a game, you know what you need to get ready for the game, and it really doesn't change. I mean, the stories may change, and you have to call it, and you have to have the right words at the right time, and it's a blank canvas. But to think of the words, to write it is, to me, is a great challenge. So I really enjoy that tremendously, and so I'm actually still, doing something. And that's what I'm doing. And somebody mentioned preparation before, and I wanted to add one other thing. I know we have some questions and we may be running out of time, but preparation is important. We all know that. I don't hear anyone who's not prepared anymore on the air. I never hear a broadcaster who's not prepared. But I feel that the key is reaction. I think the key is reaction. And I go back to the days of Pat Summerall. Pat Summerall didn't have notes, and he didn't have facts about people, and Darrell Green makes the tackle. And I didn't say, tell me more about Darrell Green. But he would then say, what is it all? He reacted to the thing. He reacted. And to me, the real challenge in play-by-play, as I saw it over the years, was not so much because we're all prepared, reacting to things that happen on the field that we have not seen before, or we have seen before, but do we do it right? Do we do it correctly? And we may never see it again, and there'll always be something. Anyway, I just want to drop that in. Any more questions? Your witness. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have a question, Dick. Hey, Dick, your attributes are obvious, and just being on this Zoom, you know why you were successful as a broadcaster, but the fact that Matt Millen is here is also a testament to how you bonded with your analysts. And I don't know if you kept a running list of how many different analysts you worked with over the years, but it would be a long list. What was the secret? How did you find and navigate and maneuver your way to find common ground with everybody that you worked with?
I love the question, Ian. A lot of you have not had as many analysts as I have, because the only lead role I ever had was the NBA. And I had 2 years with Bill Russell, 4 years with Tom Heinsohn, 1 year with Billy Cunningham, who had the nerve to leave me to become a part owner of the Miami Heat. But anyway, he did. And then I finished with 2 years with Hubie Brown, who I reunited with on Turner for so many years. And that is that I wanted to get to know them. I didn't need to necessarily always be pals with them, but I wanted them to know that we were working together. And what I would tell someone like Jim Cott, who I broke in with when we did the championship series on CBS in baseball, I said, look, I'm going to give you room. I'm going to say what I need to say, and you're going to do what you do. I basically do the who and the what. You do the why and the how. I said, we blur that every once in a while. I know that, and that's fine. But that's basically what we do. And I'll never forget a lunch I had with John Madden. It was across the street from an Italian restaurant across the street from the Dakota. And I said, early on, I said, John, what do you expect from your play-by-play announcer? And he says, Dick, he says, here's the way I look at it. Call the play, call it accurately, concisely, and get out. When the play's over, I'll pick it up. Don't lead me. Don't lead me, because I know where I want to go. And if you lead me somewhere where I don't want to go, I have to now acknowledge you, and it sounds bad. So keep quiet, go do your thing. And then when there's time at the end, this is what he impacted so much, put an exclamation point on what I said. And they say, those guys are working together great. Everyone's saying, boy, Pat always asked John. Pat didn't ask John anything. Well, he did in the beginning, and there were times during the lulls in the game when he did. But basically, during the course of the play-by-play, he did. I never forgot that. And I mentioned that to every one of the analysts I work with. I was in 75 NFL stadiums, by the way, in my career, many of which were 4 in one city, okay, including University of Minnesota, in a season. And I may have had 75 analysts in all the sports I did, and I did many of those.
Olivia?
Yes.
Actually, you asked the question I was going to ask about what Dick considered to be his greatest call or greatest moment. But I'm struck hearing everybody talk about, I guess the question I want to ask you, Dick, and I'll get emotional saying it. I appreciate the kind things you said about all of us. And that really drove me to my question, which is, do you know how much you mean to all of us, to our university? Marty started it, and I think that's why we're all so honored to have won this award. And I think we're all blessed to have known him. And hearing your invitation, I actually worked with him when he did the Ivy League football game of the week. But Marty started it. But then next, it's you and it's Marv. And none of this, I don't think any of us are on here if it wasn't for you and Marv and Bob. As you said, there wasn't even a Newhouse school. People didn't go there because there was the Newhouse school. People went there back in the day because they wanted to be Marv and they wanted to be you. So that's my first question. And then I want to thank you, because when I started out, I didn't want to do just one sport. I didn't want to just do baseball. I wanted to do every sport that I could. I grew up being a sports fan. I knew that was possible at the highest level because of you. You're the first person I can remember who did basketball and football and baseball at the highest level. So thank you for that too. So I hope you know how much you mean to all of us. I'd just be curious to know if you are fully aware of the high regard in which we all hold you.
It's hard not to, Sean. And, when you talk about doing all these sports, and I did 2 hockey games with Mike Eruzione when Fox had the package, and I didn't do much of that. You have actually, when to answer you and direct you personally, I am incredibly impressed by how you excel. I watch the NHL playoffs, and it's flawless. I watch, and I know you don't need to hear it. And I'm grateful for this, but you have become, and I don't know how you did it, and I don't know how you do it. I don't know. I'd like to know from all of you guys how you do it. I did what I did in my time, and it was fine in my time. But other people have picked up the baton, and all of you have, including you, Sean. And I've watched you with the college basketball, and I've watched you with baseball when you did the Red Sox, and you had the ability to address things that other people didn't even address. And maybe you got that from your dad, from Will, who was one of the great reporters of all time. I was scared to be in his presence at first, but then I wanted to get along with him. But basically, to answer your question, I am fully aware, and I'm so grateful And I'm aware. I move things away from myself if I can, but believe me, I am aware.
Well, we'll move it back to you for 1 second. You didn't pass off the baton. You weren't just great in your time. You're great all time. And we're all grateful to you.
Thank you.
I know we're getting to the top of the hour, so I'm going to sneak in one last question and take it back to Syracuse. Dick, tell me your favorite Syracuse athlete that you got to see, whether covering or in person or afterwards. Is there a Syracuse moment you can share with us that resonates in your soul?
Well, there is actually, and I was there and I did the first basketball game. I'll try to make this concise, which I always preach and don't always follow, but I did the first basketball game at Manley Fieldhouse, and when Fred Lewis became the head coach, and he did the Auburn Shuffle after Joel Eves and this team that he had inherited was 8-13 the first year, but they all came out to watch the freshman team led by Dave Bing, Jim Boeheim in the backcourt. And they would win 104-34. And that was a great show. But I did get to know Ernie Davis, by the way, one of the great number 44s of all time at Syracuse. And I happened to be in the same class he was in when we had to talk about to write. It was a journalism class that he was in. And I remember that I went up to him and I said, Ernie, what are you going? And I wasn't that friendly with him. I knew him, but I said, Ernie, what are you going to write about? He says, I'm not sure what to write about. I said, can I give you a suggestion? He says, yes, please. I said, you just played in the East-West Shrine game in Palo Alto. I'm sorry, Kezar Stadium then. It was still at Kezar Stadium, San Francisco. I said, they had the great motto for the Shriners, the strong may run so that the weak may walk. I said, talk about and write about your experience. And so I offered that to him. And I always remembered that.
That's awesome. Well, as we get to wrap up here, an inspiration that you provided to a lot of us in the 80s that you may not know about was WAER had pictures of the network sportscasters on the wall of the sports department as you turn the corner to head back out of the news department and into the main station area. The station has moved. At that time, it's the 4th floor of Newhouse. And your picture in your CBS blazer was there. And I remember walking by that almost every day thinking, man, can you imagine having come here and not being one of those guys? And the great part of it was when you came up to visit all of us, you were doing a Syracuse game, you were as personable and as warm as anybody who ever spent time. And the one thing that I've done, Sean does, Ian does, all of us do, Beth Mowens, everyone, when we go back to campus, we all make sure we spend time with the students and share, especially the WAER students. And the main reason I do it every time I'm back on campus is because you did it and made us feel like $1 million. So thank you for instilling something in my life that has given me back more than I've ever given. So thank you so much for being who you've been for all of us.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. I mean, and all of your comments, being on here means so much to me. Being on this Zoom, you have so much you could do. And Dean, great to have you here representing the university. Olivia, in putting this together, a tremendous job. Sandy, lifelong friends, go back to special times. And Matt Millen, and I talked about what Matt Millen means to me, and we'll always stay in touch, right? We're bonded forever. We're bonded forever.
Well, Dick, I can't thank you enough for all that you have done for the Newhouse School, Syracuse University, and for sports media industry as a whole. We are just honored to present you the Marty Glickman Award for all that you have done and continue to do today. So congratulations and thank you for everything that you've done so far.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all to the panelists. Thank you to Linda Smith, Holly Zahn, Amanda Griffin, and Brian Tibbins for making tonight happen. Thank you, Dick, and all of you for being here with us tonight. Congratulations and have a great night. Thank you.